I've been feeling really resistant today to make this video today because of the subject matter that I'm talking about. And one thing that I know about resistance is that it often indicates that it's exactly what you need to do. And so, yeah, I want to talk to you all today about me losing my job, my dream job, over the COVID vaccine. This happened in 2022. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Andrea and I wear a lot of hats. My channel is a spiritual channel. I talk about the divine feminine and healing, shadow work, all of the things that are under the umbrella of spirituality and self-mastery. And in addition to that, I'm also an actress. Being an actress is actually my very first career. I moved to New York City when I was 18 to pursue an acting career and started working very, very quickly in the industry, starting out with commercial print modeling, and then going into commercials and then television and film. And I got my big break in 2019. So just over 6 years ago, I got my big break in 2019 when I booked the pilot for Run the World, which is a series that was on Stars. And for those of you who do know me as an actress, you probably are familiar with Run the World and the work that I did on that show. I was one of the stars of that show. Sorry for the noise. I live in Texas. I'm in Texas, and loud ass diesel trucks everywhere, pickup trucks with diesel engines. So please forgive the noise. And also my fan is on next to me. I'm also kind of nervous. So I'm just putting that out there, being very clear. I'm very nervous because I've written about this a little bit, but I haven't really done a video ever talking about my experience. And I am already feeling emotions coming up to the surface. So just be patient with me. So I got my big break in 2019 when I booked the pilot, and that was such an incredible experience for me because I had been, working my way up through, I guess, the ranks of Hollywood for so many years. Up until that point, I had been doing that work for, I think, 15 years when I finally got Run the World, and it had taken so much time to move from, the co-star level, which is, the one-liners in TV shows, to moving up to guest star, to recurring guest star, to finally getting the elusive, coveted series regular role, which is what most actors who audition for television dream about getting, because a series regular is the star. Like, you're a star of the show, you have a contract, you have a set salary, you have a guaranteed number of episodes typically, and so it just creates job security, which is really the main thing that all actors are striving for, because it's such a difficult industry in that you're essentially a freelancer, you're an independent contractor. You basically loan yourself out to production companies to work on shows. And so when you land a series regular job, it's just like, finally you made it, finally you get top billing, and finally you can just rest. You don't have to constantly audition. Your profile gets raised in the industry, meaning you're more visible. So you are more likely to start getting more offers or have to do fewer auditions. There's just so many incredible benefits that come from getting a series regular role. And so I booked the pilot in October of 2019, and we filmed the pilot in December of 2019 in New York City. That's where the show is based in New York City in Harlem. And then of course, 2020 happens. And so we got picked up to series, I believe in January or February of 2020, but this was, what people were calling the pandemic wasn't happening. There was talk about it, people were coming, people were hearing more and more about it. It was becoming more widespread in conversations and in the news and things like that, but it wasn't a full-blown pandemic at that point. So getting picked up to series, I was so excited because I've known so many actors that have done pilots, but then the pilot didn't get picked up, and then you're back to square one again. So we got picked up to series. Went to Bali in 2020 for a healing retreat. LA shut down, I think, the day I left for Bali, and then came back, and then, I had a new level of spiritual awakening. I started diving deeper into my own practices while we were in lockdown. And I'm going to use quotes a lot because if you don't know me and if you haven't been a part of my community for a really long time, then you may not know what my consciousness is around this. And I realized that the topic of this video it might send this video outside of my intended audience. So I just want to be clear on that. So the pandemic, lockdown, and we were supposed to start filming this series in June of 2020, but production ended up getting pushed back because of all the things that were happening around the world, and which was fine because we still got to do the show, which was the most important thing. And so we filmed the series in 2020 from October through December in New York City. So the same place where we shot the pilot, we filmed the series. Series ended up, we filmed the series, and then the next summer, the series premiered. So it premiered, I believe it was June of 2021, the series premiered. It was a hit. We ended up getting picked up for a second season, which was supposed to start the following spring. I was so excited. I made really good money working on that show. And just, for the first time in my life, I just felt like I could rest. Like I wasn't in like the daily grind of waiting tables, auditioning, and side hustling, and all of the things that you do when you're an aspiring actor or someone who is not quite a working actor. You're sort of in that in-between space. So I finally had, for the first time in my adult life, a period where I was just like, I was good. Like I was solid. I was good. The money was coming in. I was getting residuals from previous jobs. I was living in, a cute little guest house in Sherman Oaks. And I bought my school bus that I currently live in. I bought my school bus and started the process of converting that into a tiny home in June of 2021, the same month that the show premiered. Now, one of the reasons why I bought the bus is because I had been paying attention to everything that was going on. I had been talking about spirituality and the big consciousness shifts that were happening in the collective. I was talking a lot on my Instagram about what I felt COVID actually meant, what it was calling people forward to in terms of shadow work and healing, and just elevating your consciousness to a higher level. So I had been talking about this on my platforms for a couple of years at this point, and I was also seeing everything that was happening in the world. And I don't even remember where the desire to build a bus came from, but it was sometime around 2020 when I started seeing videos of van lifers and bus lifers on YouTube. So I was just really intrigued. I love road trips. I love camping. I love traveling the country. And so it just felt like the perfect opportunity for me. And I finally had money, so I was able to just like buy a bus outright and begin the renovation process. It was a really fortunate time for me. I paid off all my debt that I had had since I was 18 years old, and life was just feeling really like smooth at this point. Then summer of 2021, shortly after I bought my bus, I remember Joe Biden going on television. He did a press conference, and he essentially was talking about mandates. And I had already been anticipating the potential that there would be mandates, just because I knew from deductive reasoning, just from, common sense, from pattern recognition, from observing all the things that were going on, living in LA and dealing with mask mandates and all of the things that were happening in some of the more liberal cities. And if you didn't live in a liberal or like blue city during that time, count your lucky stars, because it was awful. It was absolutely awful and ridiculous. But I remember getting into disagreements with people about mask mandates and things like that. And I knew that the mask mandates were the precursor for vaccination mandates, because this is how coercion happens. This is how you slowly wear down people's resolve and boundaries. You do it slowly over time. You don't take the big thing that you want to do and just put that in people's faces right out the gate, because you're going to get a lot more resistance. You start with smaller tactics and then you slowly build up to the thing that you actually want to do. And so there were people in 2020 that were calling me crazy and saying that I was, overthinking it and that there was no way there were going to be vaccination mandates and all of those things. And I ended up being correct. Because like I said, Joe Biden went on television and he gave a whole press conference essentially demanding that, I believe it was OSHA, institute vaccination mandates, which impacted more than 80 million workers. And if I'm getting some of the numbers incorrect, please correct me in the comments. It's been 4 years at this point, so some of the details might be a little bit fuzzy, but I'm pretty certain it's over 80 million workers that are under the OSHA umbrella. And so he did this on television, and I knew there was only a matter of time before the film and television industry was going to follow, because the film and television industry is a propaganda arm of the government, essentially. Like, this is where all of the messaging comes out in TV programs and news programs, etc. All of this comes from the entertainment industry. And so because there was such a global push from governments to scare people into fearing for their lives and injecting themselves with this experimental vaccination, I knew that Hollywood was going to, close ranks around this. And that's exactly what happened. Production started demanding or requiring vaccinations, vaccination certificates in order to work on productions. And it was around December of 2021, after I had given up my house in LA and was bringing my bus to Texas to finish the build, because there was a whole thing that went wrong with the builder that I was working with. There was a whole thing. It's another video. And in December, my agent reached out to me and said, Lionsgate is starting to ask questions about vaccines and they want to know people's vaccination status, da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I, of course, was really, nervous about this, because I knew that it did not line up with my religious beliefs, my spiritual beliefs. Nothing that I practice in my life would support me taking that vaccine. I was always very clear from the moment things started to deteriorate in this country around the pandemic. I knew that there was going to be a vaccine, that there were going to be mandates, and I knew that it was not something that I was going to participate in whatsoever. And so I submitted a religious exemption. My religious exemption was denied less than 48 hours after I submitted my religious exemption. And then there was a whole back and forth with Lionsgate for about 3 weeks, where I ended up meeting with their virology team and was having conversations with their departments and all of the things, bringing my agents in. It was kind of intense, and it was really scary, because this is my job. And not only was it my job, if you're new here, I don't edit my videos, so you're just going to have to watch me center myself. So not only was it my job, it was my dream job. That job was, that show was amazing. The cast, the writing, the costumes, the crew, just everything about it was a dream come true. When I moved to New York City when I was 18, I had always dreamed of, doing a show in New York. And I just wasn't getting the opportunities. There wasn't a lot of television shows filming at that time. This was like, coming into the 2010s. I moved to LA in 2013. So back then, there were not a lot of shows filming in New York City. And so I moved to LA to get more opportunities, and I did. I ended up getting more opportunities, and I booked this show. And not only did I book this show that was amazing, the show was centered in New York. It was based in New York. And not only was it based in New York, it was based in Harlem, New York, which is where I lived for 7 years. And so it was like, it was just a dream come true. It was a dream come true. And so I was scared. I was scared and nervous that I was going to lose my job. And I don't remember the exact date, but it was late January. I got an email from my agent, and she told me that they had made their decision and they had decided that they were not going to honor my contract and bring me back for the second season of the show, which was devastating. So I went from getting my big break, paying off my debt, just finally being in a space in my life where I could just breathe, to basically being homeless because I was building my bus at my mom's house. I was living in my childhood bedroom while I was finishing the build, and all of a sudden my income was gone. I, wasn't even sure how I was going to finish the bus build, and it just sent me into an immediate depression because after all of that time and after all of that work, it was just gone over something that should have been a private decision that my employer had no right to dictate whether or not I made that decision. And about a week later, I believe it was February 4th, I woke up, I keep my phone on Do Not Disturb when I sleep, and I woke up and I had a bunch of messages from my agent saying, I just got a call from such and such journalist from Deadline Hollywood, and there's an article coming out, and they want to know if you have a statement, if you want to leave a comment. And I was just like, whoa, like I was still processing the fact that I was off the show. You know what I mean? Like I was still processing that, and all of the conversations that I'd had with cast members and the new showrunner and all the things, like all of that was still so tender, and it was fresh and brand new, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Like, what was the next step for me? I was still I was grieving. And I decided to decline leaving a comment because I didn't want my words to be taken out of context. And within a couple of hours, the article came out, and they lied in the article saying that I had opted to leave the show because we couldn't find I think it was an amicable solution, I don't remember the language that was used, but they said that I opted to leave the show, which was not true. I did not opt to leave the show. I was fired from the show. And so then I made a post on my Instagram page about it. I screenshotted the article, I made a post about it, I set the record straight. The post blew up, which I kind of anticipated that it might, because I think sometimes, because so much time has passed, I think a lot of people forget just how contentious this topic was back in 2021, 2022, where if you were branded an anti-vaxxer, especially in Hollywood, you would get swarmed with hatefulness, negativity, schadenfreude, people celebrating your downfall if you lost your job, just ugliness, just absolute ugliness, evil. And the post blew up. And within a couple of hours, I had hundreds of comments. I think there's thousands of comments on this post now. Hundreds and hundreds of comments, mostly in support. Thank God it was mostly support, but there was also so much negativity, so much ugliness. The article that came out, there were so many negative comments. And then they put the article out on Friday, which meant that it had time to grow legs over the weekend. So by Monday, it was people.com, Hollywood Reporter, ABC News, and a couple of other local or domestic publications, as well as international publications. So this was everywhere. I got posted on The Shade Room. I got posted on Gossip. And if you're not familiar, those are two of the most popular Black gossip sites, and also absolutely degenerate and disgusting. But they have millions and millions of followers, and their posts get a lot of engagement. So I was posted on The Shade Room. There were thousands of comments on The Shade Room calling me stupid, calling me selfish, calling me an idiot, telling me, or not telling me, but saying that I had fumbled the bag. Just all of these things that were really painful. And just really painful. Because again, it was nobody's business. You know, my private medical decision, my private medical information was essentially revealed to the public without my consent. That is what happened when whoever the PR team for Lionsgate, when they went to deadline to release this statement, they violated my privacy and basically put me in the line of fire. They put me in the line of fire. And so, thank God, at that time, I had the awareness that I have now, the spiritual tools and practices that I have now, because for the most part, I was able to ground myself and anchor myself through the firestorm that it ignited, at least in my life. It may not appear that way to outside spectators, but for me, my whole life had just gotten flipped upside down, my whole life. And people were talking about me like they knew me or like they had a right to have an opinion about what I was going through. And it was just really hard. It was just a really hard time. And so there was really nothing that I could do about it. All I could do was just say thank you to those of you who are supporting me. I'm grateful for my opportunity to be on the show. It really changed my life in a lot of ways. And, you know, I'm sorry for all of the people who are going through something similar, because I know that I'm not the only person that this happened to. I'm not alone in my grief or my anger. There were so many people, and I'd gotten so many messages and comments and emails and phone calls from people that were just like, oh my God, the same thing happened to me, or I'm so sorry that happened to you. And it just made me realize that, you know, I wasn't alone, and I wanted to speak to the people out there who were feeling like they were alone or feeling like something had been stolen from them. And so, you know, I just talked about that, but I didn't, you know, I talked about it a couple of times, and then I stopped speaking about it because I ended up finding an attorney that felt like I had a really, really strong case, and they, on my behalf, filed a lawsuit on my behalf from Lionsgate. And I'll probably do another video talking about that. It's because I'm too emotional to talk about that. And that was its own traumatic experience. But to give you a spoiler, I did not win. I lost. I lost. And so, to this day, I haven't received justice for what happened to me. And in the last, 5 years since the vaccine was released, and all of the absolute craziness of that time has died down, and it's no longer a big topic of conversation. The people who wanted to take the shot took it. The people who didn't want to take the shot didn't. There's almost like this, like, collective amnesia of, like, what happened to people like me, where there's just no memory of the fact that so many people had their lives destroyed. They had their financial lives destroyed over this. And that's something that is still really, it's really frustrating, and it makes me angry sometimes to think about that, to think about what happened, and for all these years later, with everything that has come out about these vaccines, all of the injuries, all of the deaths, all of the people who are suffering. Like, I personally know people who are suffering because of this, because they decided to take it and are dealing with chronic illnesses and heart issues and blood clots and all kinds of things. And it's just not a topic of conversation at all. There's no accountability whatsoever for what people have gone through. And that's something that I'm still reeling from. And one of the most painful aspects of this was that it didn't just cost me my job, it cost me my career in so many ways, because all of the major productions were, they had mandates at that time, and those mandates lasted for, it was well over a year. It was, I think, a year and a half that those mandates lasted, and they weren't lifted until it was around May of 2023, I believe. And then right after that, all of the actors, the SAG-AFTRA went on strike. So for 6 months after the mandates ended, there was really no work. So for almost 2 years, I wasn't able to work. No, I couldn't audition, didn't book jobs. There was really no jobs to book because they either had vaccine mandates or some type of mandate that would prevent me from being able to work on set. So for 2 years, I was basically iced out of or blacklisted from my own industry. And I had no recourse. I was still in the process of my lawsuit at that time, but I couldn't go after my union for not protecting me. There were just so many things that happened all at once. It was just like my whole life just collapsed in on itself. And it's taken a really long time to work through that, and I'm still have so much to work through, obviously, because I'm so emotional and activated by talking about it. But it's also why I'm talking about it, because this is my story. This is what happened to me. This is what I've been navigating and healing from and growing from and finding power from. And I will, I'll probably do another, because this video is already so long. I'll probably come back maybe tomorrow or some other time with like part 2. What is the resolution? Even though I don't actually have a resolution right now, I am in a much better place than I was. But for, these last couple of years, I have battled with depression because, and anger and confusion and just not knowing what was next. And thankfully, before I lost my job, I had already started the process of, building my own business, which is what is essentially sustaining me now. But I didn't anticipate that it would be like my main or one of my main sources of income, because I love being an actress, and I wanted to be an actress since I was like 8 or 9 years old, and had worked my whole life to finally get this big opportunity that was supposed to solidify me in my career and finally give me the opportunity to work at a deeper level, to actually get to build out characters, which you don't get to do when you're a co-star or a guest star. You don't get to flesh out these characters and dive deeper into their stories and their lives and live through that. You don't get to do that unless you're a series regular or you're starring in a movie. And so few actors get those opportunities because, the 1% of Hollywood is just like the 1% in the rest of the world, where most of the opportunities and the money goes to this very, very, very small number of people. And so it just disillusioned me to a lot of things about Hollywood and my life and the path that I had been walking. And I had also learned a lot about, some of the underlying spiritual components driving Hollywood, which I'm not going to get into in this video. That's a whole other topic. But if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. And I don't really know, because people always ask me, when am I going to see you on TV again? And it just, every time someone says that to me, or every time somebody asks me that, a little piece of me dies, because I don't know. I don't know if I still have a career. I still I get to audition sometimes, but the industry in and of itself has shifted a lot. A lot of actors are struggling. I'm not the only person, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm the only one that's struggling, because I'm not. A lot of us are going through hard times in the industry because of streaming and AI and just all of the the big technological changes that are happening in the industry. So I'm not alone in that. And thankfully I had the awareness You know, I had the messaging from the divine to start pivoting and to start really using my gifts, like my gifts outside of my talent as an actress, to be in service to other people. And that's what I'm leaning into more and more and more. And I even did my first video, not my first video, but my first video when I started posting every day, was I talked about a new era and a new identity, and finally just leaning into entrepreneurship and going all in my business. And one of the reasons why I wasn't going all in is because I was still, I think, holding on to my old dream. And it's not to say that that old dream isn't possible, but it's not where I'm being guided right now. And it's not where I'm being guided right now. And I'm still grieving that. I accept it, but I'm grieving. And talking about it and, you know, in this video is just helping me recognize how much I'm still grieving and how much I'm still hurting by the events that happened, and just all of the ugliness that I experienced, all the ugliness that was directed at me when I wasn't hurting anybody and couldn't have hurt anybody. And this idea that I would have been hurting somebody because I didn't want to inject myself with something that was hurting people is just a testament to how backwards this world is. This world is so backwards, and people are so fear-based and judgmental and angry and want to control the lives and behaviors of other people because they feel out of control in their lives. And I recognize that, but it hurts. It hurts. And so I don't have a poignant lesson for this video. I don't have, you know, what's the takeaway. I don't have any of that. I just wanted to tell like a little piece of my story and something that's really painful for me that I've gone through, and something that I'm still navigating and moving through and transmuting, alchemizing, which is what I teach. It's what I love. And I wouldn't be able to teach transmutation and alchemy if I didn't have things to transmute and alchemize within my life. And so, as with all the things that I've gone through, I'm grateful. You know, I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for all of my experiences. I'm grateful for every opportunity for growth, every opportunity for self-reflection, every opportunity for healing and shadow work, and recognizing where I get to go deeper and love myself more and have more grace for myself and have grace for others and compassion for others. And yeah, that's it. If you stuck through even half of this video, thank you, because this is probably the realest thing I've posted on here so far, and the rawest thing I've shared so far. And you witnessing me and holding me as I share this and as I express this means a lot. So thank you. And let me know what you think. Did you go through something similar in your life? Did you have a different perspective then and you have a new perspective now? Did you lose your job? Did you have conflict with family members over that period? Were you in my community or my audience around the time that happened? And do you remember when I posted about all of these things and, you know, shared what was going on with me? Whatever it is that you have to say, let me know. Do you think I'm still an idiot or selfish or stupid, or I fumbled the bag and should have done the right thing for the greater good? Whatever your opinion is, let me know in the comments. Actually, don't call me an idiot or anything like that. If you're rude or disrespectful, I will either block you or hurt your feelings. I'm not going to hurt your feelings. I'm not going to do that. I'm just emotional right now. But don't be mean to me because I'll block you. I'll make sure that you never get to see another one of my videos. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, for being here, for hearing my story and watching me cry on the internet, and just talk about something that is so real and so deep for me. I will see you tomorrow in the next video.